Welcome to Piggypower. As per the description, fuel filter N1723 Bosch on a FORD Kuga TDCi 2 litre. Same for the Peugeots and some Citroens too, and a bunch of other Fords. First, once you lifted the bonnet, take the engine cover off. Put that aside somewhere safe. Then, assess that we need a 8mm socket and a 27mm socket. First, 8mm socket. But before that, make sure you unplug the water sensor. It was actually unplugged on this, but I did it after the fact. Remove the 8mm bolts. There's normally 3, there again happen to only be 2 on this model for some reason. Then unclip the loom from the front and remove the metal guard out of the way. This also holds part of the engine cover. Then get a rag, because you will spill a little bit of diesel around you, and we will unplug it. You need to unplug your fuel lines. It's a good idea to try and keep all the dust and dirt out of them, so if you've got plugs for them, that's great to block them up. Push down the clip, pull out on the fuel line, that's the in, and this is the out. Push either side of the clip, that one, and pull away from the filter housing. I tuck it under something out the way, facing down if you haven't got something to plug the end, so no dirt can get in the line. Keeping the diesel clean, and then we're going to get ourselves the socket. 27mm socket, and a decent ratchet or bar to undo this with. It is tight, as you're about to see, presuming it hasn't been done a little while, or the O-ring wasn't lubricated with a little bit of diesel. My experience, they're not always this tight, so you might find it a little bit easier. Make sure you're doing it lefty-loosey, not righty-tighty. But it has to come undone at some point. So reposition myself, better leverage, and there it starts to go finally. Make sure you keep a bit of pressure on top of the end of the ratchet where the socket is attached, pushing down so that you don't slip off and smash your knuckles across the engine bay. Take your time, apply even amount of pressure, don't hit it with a hammer or anything, that could break the plastic. Just feel how the threads want the pressure. It's a good point to ask you to subscribe and like. Hit the bell. Do all those other cool things.
Shouldn't normally be that tight. Whew. Wow.
Well done everyone. If you got to this stage, you're not quite, but almost halfway. So very gently lift it out, and then you're just going to let all the diesel drain. We don't want to waste any of it. The diesel that is currently in there gets filtered through the filter and out, so there's not too much of a panic about little bits of dirt and dust getting into the filter housing as it is now, but you do still want to be cautious, obviously. I wouldn't want to be doing this in a dust storm. But you also don't want to waste any diesel, so I just give this a moment to let the diesel drain out of the filter and back into the housing underneath. Then take the filter with its top hat over to a nice clean part of the bench. Now you'll see inside, see that white gloopy stuff? That's not good. So here I'm using a vacuum pump gauge thing, pump thingy vacuum tool. It's really handy, they're about 15 quid on eBay. And I'm applying some vacuum to the bottle, the container, which is then sucking through a tube, which is drawing out all the dirty diesel, all the muck that's at the bottom of the filter housing. Some have a drain, which is good. This one I couldn't see that it did, and often they do break. I find it simpler just to suck it out. You can see that gunk at the bottom. This is a mixture of the biodiesel and water that's in the fuel and other contaminants that just settles at the bottom. We want to get that out, and we did. And I'll just cover it with a piece of plastic, just so that nothing silly happens that falls in the container and I forget about it. Onto the workbench, just get ourselves a little fat screwdriver. We're going to flick the old O-ring off. You can discard it. Obviously these are one-time use because you get a new one, but you can keep it for some other day. Lubricate the new O-ring with a little bit of diesel. That'll help you slide the O-ring onto the top hat, and it'll also help you to actually fit it back on. As you saw earlier, it was very tight coming off. Similar applying to a little bit of oil to the seal on an oil filter when you put it on. Makes it easy to get it off for the next guy, which might just be you. You hear it just click on then, flick into its little groove, its little location. Use the same screwdriver. I'm just going to flick the old filter off. There we go. Just checking the filter for any bits of metal inside. Couldn't see any, which is good. Now a little trick I like to do so you don't get the new filter all dirty is leave a little bit of the plastic on the filter, like that, using it like a glove. Click it in place, you hear that nice click, and then take it over to the engine bay and like that. Remove the plastic cover, and then we can drop that filter in all nice and clean into some clean diesel. Now if you have some diesel spare, it's not a bad idea to top up the filter housing for when you're trying to bleed it of air later. I don't generally keep anything like that around, so it's just dunked in, and we'll have to bleed it out in a minute, as you'll see. Tighten up the filter housing with a 27mm socket, or could be a spanner I suppose, until you reach the stop. There is a stop, I'll show you, I'll zoom in. Zoom in now. Thank you. So there's the little stop, one little flange meets another, and so you know you've gone all the way in its right position. Perfect. Removing the little cap from the top, which I'd fitted at some point, can't remember when, just to keep the muck out. Push the in fuel line onto the housing, and then before we fit the other line, the out, into the engine, into the pump, I'm using that same vacuum pump to draw all the air out of the housing and pull the fuel through from the tank. These engines don't have a pump in the tank to push the fuel, it draws it, so you could be there cranking all day long until your starter sets fire and your battery runs out. Again, these tools are just about 15 quid on eBay to buy one. You could also just use a hand pump of some sort, but what you're looking for is no bubbles, or a very limited amount of bubbles coming from there, and you know you've bled it out. Then we can fit the other fuel pipe onto the fuel housing. Make sure it clicks on, hopefully you heard that. Then we're just going to tidy it up. Fit the protective metal cap back on. Yeah, this is the point I realise that there's only two. Oh, faff that one up. There we go. 1, 2. Clip the loom back on. Job done. Finally, plug in the water sensor until it clicks. And don't forget to check for leaks. All good. So thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell, make a comment, and stay safe when you're working on your vehicle.